Okay, in this lesson, let's talk about some of the different file formats that we can use on the web for our graphics and decisions to make on which ones are best for which situation. So I have listed here on this particular document, and by the way, I'm in the Lesson 6 folder, and I'm in a file called Chapter 6 Graphics. It's a PDF, so you're going to want to open it with either Adobe Acrobat or the free Adobe Reader. So these are the three main types of images that we use on the web. We have JPEG, we have GIF, and we have PNG. So the JPEG, let's talk about that one first and some of the pluses and minuses of it. JPEG stands for Joint Photographic Experts Group. That's great information to have if you're ever at a Photoshop trivia party, like I am. RGB is the color space that we're using. It has a possible 16.7 million colors, so you can get really rich color with a JPEG. It's a good choice for continuous tone images, and what we mean by that are images like photographs that have a lot of variations between colors. So gradients and just, so many different shades here as opposed to a flat, solid color. That's a continuous tone image. So photographs, gradients, and blends, it's perfect for that. No support for transparency in a JPEG, and no support for animation. So it's perfect for photos that you want to have rich, full-bodied color. The next one is a GIF or GIF. I call it a GIF. It stands for Graphic Interchange Format. It has index color as the color space, so you only have 256 colors to pick from. That's a big difference from 16.7 million, don't you think? It's a good choice for flat areas of color like logos, shapes, solid colors. It's not a good choice for continuous tone, again, because you're only getting 256 possible colors. So it has a small color space. That means it doesn't have very many options for you as far as different colors. It does support transparency, and it does support animation. If you remember the early days on the web, when we had things like beating hearts and little men running across the bottom of the page, those are animated GIFs. They're not used much anymore these days, but that's what those are. The third file size we'll get to in a second, but you can see that there are shortcomings of both of these. The JPEG gives you beautiful color, but there's no transparency or animation. GIFs have transparency and animation, but not beautiful full color. So that's where PNG comes in, where it has the best of both worlds. A PNG stands for Portable Network Graphic. It is an RGB color space, so it has a possible 16.7 million colors. It is a good choice for continuous tone images, but you can also use it for flat areas of color, but it's really best for continuous tone. It does support transparency, so if you have masked part of your images in Photoshop, you'll be able to get that nice transparency, and it does support animation. These can tend to be large files, so you have to pay attention to that as you're working with them, but that just gives you a quick overview of the three different types of images that we use to put graphics on the web. Let's take a look at my favorite way to save images for the web in this lesson. I'm in the Lesson 6 folder, and in the Images folder, I've opened the image called Bean Blossom Large. It's a JPEG that's much too large to go up on the web, but it's a beautiful photo, and I want to size it down. Making graphics to use on your blog site or you're uploading photos to Facebook, you certainly don't want to upload enormous photos, so this is a great feature. It's actually a part of Photoshop and Illustrator. So if you have Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator, any of the recent versions in the last few years, this feature has been in for a while, and it's an awesome feature. So as I said, I'm in Photoshop. I'm in CS 5.5. Up under the File menu, there is a Save for Web and Devices, and that's what I'm using. The keyboard shortcut for Mac users is Command-Option-Shift-S for save, and Control-Alt-Shift-S for save for Windows users. So let's go in and take a look at it. First of all, when you open it, you have 4 tabs up here at the top. Original is going to show you your unchanged image, and I'm actually going to use one more shortcut to show me my whole image. I'm using Command-0 on the Mac and Control-0 on Windows so that I can see the entire photo. Up here, you also have an optimized tab. So original shows you your unchanged image. Once you know what you're doing and you don't need to really compare versions, I use the optimized tab. But there's a 2-up and a 4-up, and you can certainly use those when you're getting started. So I'm on 4UP right now. The first thing I like to do is go to each one of these has a modem speed that you can set for each one individually. I use 56K. In my dream world, everyone would have a T1 line, but the reality is if you're dealing with the general public, there are people who are still going to be on dial-up or have another type of slow connection. So you certainly want to prepare your images for the worst possible scenario. The one that has a blue line around it is the one that you're working on. So I'm working on this one right now. If I go over here to my optimize palette, and again, we are optimizing our images, what that means is we're making decisions on quality versus file size. I'm going to go up here to JPEG, and I'm going to set this one to low. And you'll see right away that it comes in at 426K. Now I know that's still kind of big for low, so I know already I have a problem. So down here in the lower right hand corner where the image size section is, I can see that my image is enormous. So I'm going to go in here and change the width of my image to 800 and then just click in the other field. So you can actually resize your images within this window. And again, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I've got some plus and minus buttons down here so I can see my image a little better. I like to zoom in at 100% because that's what your user is going to be viewing it at. Such a beautiful bridge, isn't it? So I'm at 800 for my width. I've got my JPEG set to low and it's down to 56K. I'm going to click on this one and change it to JPEG and set this one to the highest possible, which is maximum. This one is 12 times the size, or actually in this case 10 times the size. It's 570K. But I've got much cleaner, sharper edges. So this is way too big for on the web, but I wouldn't want my image to look like this either. So I have some in-between settings that I could use and play with. I also have some quality and blur settings that I can play with. If I had masked this photo so that the background was transparent, you can't get transparency in a JPEG, but you could go in here with the matte and put a solid color behind it, typically the color of your web page, so that it has the illusion of being transparent. So those are the JPEG settings. I also have a progressive button up here, so I can save a low, medium, and high quality version of my image all in one so that they're loading simultaneously while the person is waiting. If they have a slow connection, they at least have something they can be looking at. So for this one, I'm now going to change it to a ping. There's 8-bit and 24-bit pings. These do allow transparency, so if my image was masked, I would be able to see the transparency back here. And then another setting is the GIF. Now GIF I would never use for this kind of photo, but a GIF would be perfect for a flat area of color, like a logo or a piece of text, something with just plain flat color. When you save something as a GIF, the total number of colors available to you are 256, as opposed to a ping or a JPEG, which use the RGB workspace, and so they would allow you to have 16.7 million possible colors. That's a big difference. So with this one, I have it at 256, and you can see this file size is 323K. As I start throwing out colors, that's how GIFs reduce their file size. They throw out colors. But I'm allowing Photoshop to make the decision for me. So although this looks kind of cool, I probably wouldn't want my image to look this way. That might be a cool art print, but not really appropriate for an image from the web. So I definitely want to control how many colors it has, but what you can do, if you allow Photoshop to just take the colors out randomly, you might lose some important colors that you want to keep, like your logo color. So what I can do instead with GIFs is I have a color table. I can get my little eyedropper tool over here, and I can click on a color, and I can click this little padlock and lock that color. So each one of these that I lock will automatically keep that color. So as I start deleting colors from up here, Photoshop is going to keep the ones that I locked. So you can see as I'm deleting colors, the locked ones, the ones that have the little symbol in the corner, those are still there. It's going to get rid of those colors last. So you do have some control over how your image appears. So you can also go down here to go to Device Central. That allows you to go out and see what your images look like on a mobile device, and there are lots of different mobile devices you can pick from. I highly recommend that. When you click the Save button, you can save just your images, which is what I do. You can save your images on an HTML page, or you can save just the HTML, and I really have never done that. I simply use this just for saving my images. But if I'm saving images for Facebook, for instance, I usually set my width to 800 and my quality of my JPEG to medium. That's just what I do. But it depends on your situation and what your photo is for. If these are product photos for your company, you definitely want the highest quality you can get and still keep the file size manageable. So this is the Save for Web and Devices feature of Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator, and it's my favorite way of saving images for the web. In this lesson, let's talk a little bit about color on the web. Talk about things that we can control and things we can't control. On the web, the color that we use is called additive color. So your computer screen, a TV, any color source that emits light is built of little red, green, and blue dots, and this particular color system is called additive. When you add all the colors together, you get white. So that's why it's known as additive. Here's an example. So the three main colors are red, green, and blue. So you'll see them listed here, red, green, and blue. When they overlap, that's when we get the cyan, magenta, and yellow. And when all three of those primary colors are together in equal amounts, we get white in the center. That's why it's known as an additive color. RGB colors are shown with their RGB numbers in all the Adobe applications in their swatch panels. So when you open a program like, I'm working with Illustrator here, but Photoshop, really any Adobe program that has swatches would allow you to see your swatches in a number of different color modes. This orange that I'm showing is showing here right now in RGB. So the 255 is the amount of red, 147 is the amount of green, and 30 is the amount of blue. When those three amounts are together, it makes this shade of orange. When you're working with colors on the web, however, we work with hexadecimal numbers, and that's a breakdown of 2, 2, and 2. So 2 numbers for the red, 2 numbers for the green, and 2 numbers for the blue. And the numbers can go from 0 to 9, and the colors can go from A to F. So that's what hexadecimal numbers look like. 2 digits for the red, 2 digits for the green, and 2 for the blue. And again, in all the Adobe applications in the swatches panel, you can indicate that you want to view them as web colors, and it will show you the hexadecimal color. So it's easy to switch from RGB to the web colors in any Adobe application by using the swatch options. You can click on the color mode here and change it from RGB to web. And here is the breakdown of those particular shades that make the shade of orange. So all the Adobe applications have this. You can't control a lot of things as far as color on your user's computer. It depends on if their monitor has been calibrated or not. But you can basically use just about any shade you want. If you're using a Pantone color from print, you can convert that. Again, in the swatch panel of all the Adobe applications, it does give you the option to do that. And other applications that are non-Adobe have similar features that allow you to take colors and convert them to the web colors. So on the web, we're using hexadecimal numbers, which are a combination of 2 numbers for red, 2 numbers for green, and 2 numbers for blue. In this lesson, let's take a look at some resources that I can provide for you that help you with choosing colors that you want to use on your website. First of all, I have a few resources that I like. The first 3 that are listed here are great ones for finding color charts for on the web. And the final one at the bottom is an Adobe product called Cooler. And you can find it on the web under cooler.adobe.com. In addition, some of the Adobe applications actually have an extension inside them that allows you to get to a miniature version of this right within the program. So 2 that you might be using for web would be Illustrator and Photoshop, and they both have Cooler extensions within them. So let's explore Cooler a little bit so I can tell you a little bit about it. First of all, the website is cooler.adobe.com, and this is what the homepage looks like. So there is a place up here where you can actually sign in. You can also register up here if you want. There's a section over here that has some different links. So what Cooler is it's groups of 5 colors that Adobe community users have put together and rated, so you can actually use them in case you don't want to have to come up with your own colors. It's a time saver, and it's also good for people who are not all that color savvy, who maybe want to just use other combinations other people have come up with instead of trying to mix their own shades. The first thing you want to do is sign in with your free Adobe ID. If you don't have an Adobe ID, you really should have one. It allows you to post to forums and download cool things from Adobe's website, and it allows you to participate here in the Cooler community. So once you've logged in, and by the way, if you don't have a login, you can click here on the register button and sign up for free. Once you've logged in, you have access to a number of different features. The search field on the left-hand side allows you to search for a particular theme like ocean or autumn or Valentine's Day, whatever you're looking for. And then when people create these combinations of 5 colors, they add tags to them. So this particular set right here, for example, might be known for autumn. I can see that it's called Honey Pot, and these are the tags that are associated with it. Bee, bottle, brand, clay, hive, honey. Those are all tags that the person who created this set added so that other people would be able to find it. So if you searched for honey or brand or sweet, this one would come up in the list. So here I clicked on the left-hand side on highest rating, and it showed me the ones that were rated the highest by the Adobe community. Honey Pot is actually one of the higher rated ones because those colors are very well liked by other users. Once you've chosen a set of colors that you particularly like, there are 3 buttons over here on the side. The middle one allows you to download it as what we call an Adobe Exchange file. It has an ASE extension, and you can import it into a number of different Adobe applications, including Illustrator and Photoshop, and you can use the colors then as your very own. So this is a quick introduction to Adobe's fabulous color product called Cooler. You can explore it on the web, or as I said, in some of the Adobe applications like Photoshop and Illustrator, there's an extension you can find under the window menu that you can use to work with Cooler directly within the application. It's a great time saver for choosing colors that are complementary to use within your website. In this lesson, I'd like to introduce you to the canvas element in HTML5. It's pretty advanced and outside the scope of this class, but I wanted to at least introduce it to you because anyone you talk to about HTML5 is most likely going to ask you or talk to you about the canvas element, and you'll have a better idea of what it is. So I'm in my favorite HTML editor, which is Dreamweaver, and I'm in the Chapter 6 folder. There's a start and an end folder, and I've opened the file called Britain Canvas from each one of those. So from the start folder, I've opened the file called BrittonStart.html, and from the end folder, I've opened Britain Canvas End.html, and I've previewed both of them in my browser so I can show you what they look like. So this is the start one, and this is the end one. The only difference is we're going to change the color. Let me explain a little bit about what the canvas tag actually is. It's pretty exciting. So up until now, whenever you wanted to place an image on your page, any kind of a graphic, you needed to use the image tag. So this graphic at the top, this inside of the bridge, this one down here, and this photo of me are all placed with the image tag. You simply indicate where you want it to go, and wherever you put it in your code, that's where the image shows up. What's happening now with the canvas element, it's actually a container that holds another type of graphic. So what we do is we use the canvas element to make a container and put it where we want it, and then we add a script, and the script is what does all the work. So in this particular instance, these 2 items were actually being drawn in the browser via this script that we've added. So again, we're not going to go in and actually write any code for this. We're just going to simply go in and change the colors, but I wanted to show you what's available. For the future, examples of how this could be used, having something that draws right in the browser, you might have a map. So we may have a map of the covered bridge area, and we may want to draw our route over top of it. So by having that graphic in place, that image, we can then go in our browser, draw a route over top of it by plotting points. So it's very exciting for the future. This is just a simple little example of it. Let's get back to our HTML editor, and let's go in and change the color. So the first thing I want to show you is down in the code, and I'm going to do a search here and find canvas. So here's the actual element that we've added, the canvas element right here. It's got an attribute of ID, and then the value is canvas. We named our element, and it has some text in here. So right inside the element, it says your browser does not support canvas. Please update your browser to the latest version. So if you happen to be using an older version of any of the 5 major browsers that support this element, you would get this information that pops up if you were not able to view it. So the element called canvas goes down in the body section, and then up in our head section of our document where all the scripts are located. In line 14, you'll see that I have the 2 rectangles in here. So one is called RGB and one is called RGBA. And I'm going to take you back to the browser to show you. This one on the top left is RGB. The one on the bottom right is RGBA. So the way they appear in our start document, they're these colors, and we're going to change the colors to look like this. So back to Dreamweaver, or whatever HTML editor you're using, and I'm in the start file, and I'm going down where it says RGB, and these are the numbers we want to change. So they're separated by commas, so this is red, this is green, and this is blue. So a red value of 255, a green value of 20, and a blue value of 147 create that color, and we want to change it to a different shade. So I'm just going to go in here and select all of these numbers inside those parentheses, and I'm going to change it to 205, 175, 149. And then I'm going down to the next rectangle, which is called RGBA, selecting the numbers inside those parentheses, and notice there are 4 numbers. So we have our RGB. This last number we're going to leave alone. This stands for transparency. So again, in order to be able to see both of these items and have one be transparent over top of the other, this item on top has a transparency setting. So for this particular one, RGBA, we're just going to change the first 3 numbers. So we're going to change it to 107, 142, and 35, and we're leaving the 0.5 in there to indicate transparency. So let's save our file. Let's go out and preview it in our browser. And there it is, we've changed the colors. So again, this is the canvas element, a little advanced for this class, but I wanted to at least show it to you and talk to you about what it can do in the future. And we've gone in and we've simply changed the colors by adjusting the RGB breakdowns inside the script.